Chaperoned courtship. So if you were born in the medieval era and fancied a boy or girl, there was literally nothing like phone calls or text messages, so the only way you could see it was to meet up physically. Now, here's where it gets really funny. During this era, when people wore corsets tighter than their wallets and thought ankles were scandalous, courting was a serious, heavily supervised activity. A man who fancied a young lady couldn't just slide into her DMs or even invite her out to dinner. Oh no! He had to go through a whole process, and the term chaperone wasn't just a suggestion, it was a mandate. Basically, dating wasn't a Netflix and chill affair, but more like parlor and stare while your Aunt Mildred hovers over you with a glare. Before you can even get to this point, you have to first seek permission to court the girl from her parents. And if you succeed, you win the chance to be stared at intensely while you sip tea with the object of your affection. This is because a young unmarried woman being all alone with a man who wasn't her father or the priest was scandalous, and she would basically destroy her family's reputation. So to prevent this abomination from happening, you'll be stuck with her chaperone on every date. We're talking tea time, horse riding, annual balls, evening strolls, you name it. The royal cock blocker keeps things as PG as possible, and any form of physical advance. And even though the strict supervision was the most uncomfortable thing ever, you still get to spend time with her at least, even if there's a third wheel eyeing you from the bushes. Calling cards. Your dad decides to throw another grand ball for your mom's birthday, and now you're stuck with ancient nobles, each one more boring than the last. You're about to give up on the night entirely when suddenly a young man approaches you and hands you a calling card with his family crest and name on it. The sophisticated card design made one thing clear: this guy didn't come to play. You see, these calling cards were the original dating profiles, bold, stylish, and designed to impress. They were basically the Victorian way of saying, "Here's my IG handle, you know where to find me." These men flaunted their cards like peacocks displaying their feathers, hoping to catch your attention and maybe your heart. If a guy shows interest in you, he'll either hand it to you in person or leave it with a maid, like some old-timey version of sliding into your DMs. And if you were into him, you'd send the card back with an invitation for tea, or, if you were really feeling it, an invite to the next ball. And let's be real, the fancier the card, the bigger the bankroll. Victorian men were basically laying down a royal marketing pitch just to say, "I'm into you." No casual texts here. These guys had calligraphy, family crests, and enough flair to make a peacock blush. Matchmaking. It's been 4 long years since your deadbeat ex broke up with you, and now every time you try talking to a guy, they turn out to be one sandwich short of a picnic. However, your friend is determined to pull you out of your withered cocoon to start mingling with the outside world again. So she's got you on a new match every other week, and somehow each guy is more questionable than the last. Now, even though matchmaking today might look like a chaotic mix of swiping apps and bad friend suggestions, it's got really deep roots, and it was just as chaotic back in the day. You see, in ancient times, matchmaking had absolutely nothing to do with love and romance. It was more like a business deal conducted by your parents or a professional matchmaker, aka the original Tinder. And swiping was about assets, dowries, and land ownership, not whether he could pull off a dad joke. Besides, who needs words of affirmation when your family could get a new horse and cow as payment for your hand in marriage? At least you had a roof over your head. Fast forward to now, and the chaos is still alive and well. Instead of calculating your future assets, algorithms are matching you based on a shared love of cat videos, while your well-meaning friend sets you up with someone who thinks fine dining means a drive-thru and a milkshake. Napkin Drop. So, your king has invited everyone to the town hall for a celebration. Knights are feasting, a bard plays his lute in the background, and the air is lively. Suddenly, across the room you spot a knight who waved at you during his patrol the other day. Ever since that silent encounter, you've been smitten. Now, you're no maiden to sit back and hope for a miracle, so you casually stroll past him and accidentally drop your napkin nearby. If he picks it up and hands it back with a smile, well, congrats! You've just pulled off one of the OG dating moves, the napkin drop. Back then, this wasn't just a cute gesture. Oh no, it was a perfectly orchestrated signal. It's the medieval equivalent of sliding into someone's DMs, except with a little more style and zero Wi-Fi. Dropping a napkin was your way of saying, hey, I'm interested, without saying a word. And it wasn't just napkins. People would trade all sorts of tokens like ribbons, gloves, or even locks of hair. No cringy pickup lines necessary, just a well-timed oops and a dash of charm. In a world without Tinder or Hinge, these gestures were everything. Your entire romantic future could hinge on whether or not Sir Gallant over there noticed your dropped napkin. If he did, you were in business. But if he ignored it, well, that was the medieval equivalent of being left on red. Personal ads. It's the 1800s, and you're in the parlor with your friends, trying not to fall asleep as they gossip about who's marrying whom and who scandalously wore last season's bonnet. You've been single longer than you care to admit, and you're ready to take matters into your own hands. So, you march over to the nearest newspaper office to publish a personal ad that'll set the town ablaze. I'm an unprovoked dog lover looking for someone to have epic chess battles with. Meet me at the Barns on Tuesday. If that doesn't reel in at least 2 potential suitors, then let's be honest, this town just doesn't know a good thing when it reads it. Well, these little personal ads were one of the wildest ways people in the 1800s would show they were ready to court, and it didn't just apply to the women. Think of them as the original dating bios, packed with wit, humor, and a pinch of chaos. Instead of swiping left or right, folks would flip through newspapers hoping to find someone who matched their unique brand of freak. In fact, people back then would even go as far as getting a wife through the newspaper by posting an ad. No courting, no getting to know each other, and all the other hassle that comes with dating. Between the witty repartee and the eccentric requests, personal ads of the 1800s were pure gold. Computer dating. So imagine a time when mobile phones were still a dream, and the only way to connect with someone was a chunky computer the size of a small fridge. This was the thrilling reality of computer dating, where romance met technology with all the grace of a clunky dance number. It was a time when finding love meant sitting down with a massive machine and hoping it didn't overheat in the process. To get started, you'd fill out an elaborate questionnaire detailing your likes, dislikes, and what you were looking for in a partner. Do you like long walks on the beach? Check. Prefer candlelit dinners? Check. Love for collecting porcelain cats? Absolutely. Then you'd send off this questionnaire to a computer dating service that would process your answers and spit out your supposed perfect match. It was kind of like Tinder, but if Tinder took 2 weeks and came back with a 15-pound stack of paper. Once your answers were in, you'd sit back and wait for your match results. No swiping left or right here. This was strictly a submit and pray situation. And the best part is, you didn't even have to leave your house. You could potentially meet your knight in shining armor without ever setting foot in a smoky bar or having to endure one of those awkward introductions from your aunt. But of course, there were a few hiccups in this brave new world of computer-assisted love. The technology wasn't exactly foolproof, and more than a few people ended up with matches that had them scratching their heads. Speed dating. Speed dating burst into the scene in the late 90s, bringing with it a rush of romance that moved faster than a roller coaster ride. It was the kind of dating where you had to hit the ground running and hope you didn't trip over your own charm. Here's how it worked. You had just a few minutes to win over your date before the bell rang, signaling it was time to move on to the next hopeful. It was like a dating game show, minus the flashing lights and overly enthusiastic host. In this rapid-fire setup, there was no time for small talk. You'd cut straight to the essentials. What do you do for a living? Are you into pineapple on pizza? Where do you stand on the whole cats versus dogs debate? And just when you'd get into the groove of the conversation, the bell would ring and bam, you're on to the next potential social match. It was the ultimate speed run of love, where you'd need lightning reflexes and a solid elevator pitch to make it through the night. The best part is that you never knew what you were going to get. One minute you're across from someone who seems like your soulmate, and the next, you're listening to a passionate argument about why raisins should be banned from all baked goods. Each date was like a mini blind date with the potential to be a masterpiece of chemistry or a glorious disaster. Online dating. Online dating is basically like shopping for love, but instead of browsing shoes, you're scrolling through faces. You set up a profile on a dating app, which is like your digital dating resume, and list your best qualities, favorite hobbies, and maybe throw in a cute photo of yourself at that one angle where you actually look like a movie star. Basically, it was like fishing, but instead of worms, you'd use fun facts about yourself to catch someone who hopefully didn't think you needed mental help. And just like fishing, it was always a gamble. You could reel in the catch of your dreams, or you might end up with someone who looked like they crawled straight out of the swamp. It all started with websites like Match.com and eHarmony, where people would write out very detailed profiles, spilling the beans on everything from their favorite foods to their secret obsession with reality TV. Then dating apps came along and things sped up big time. Now, instead of wading through long profiles, you get a quick snapshot, one-liners, and selfies galore. You swipe right if you're into someone, left if you're not, and bam, it's on to the next. It's like speed dating, but from your couch, in your pajamas, with a tub of ice cream. Zombieing! Picture this. You're snuggled up with some popcorn, scrolling through your phone when a new message pops up, and it's from that person who ghosted you weeks, maybe even months ago. You gape in disbelief, thinking, didn't I lay this one to rest? But no, they've clawed their way back from the dead, slipping into your DMs like a zombie with unfinished business. That's basically what zombieing is. It's when someone who ghosted you suddenly rises from the grave of ignored texts and ghosted calls, trying to worm their way back into your life, as if they hadn't vanished into the ether. They typically reappear with a casual, "Hey stranger," or "Long time no see," which is code for, "I need some attention and your number's still in my phone." It's like they've risen from the dating dead with no memory of the fact that they ghosted you in the first place. Perhaps they were just in hibernation, or maybe they were resurrected by the memory of your cute selfies. Either way, now there's an undead suitor lurking in your inbox. Now, when this happens, you normally just have three options. You might choose to run for the hills and avoid the zombie apocalypse, decide to entertain this reanimated romance, or even arm yourself with garlic and steaks, just in case. Cloaking. So imagine you've been chatting with someone who seems great. You're excited, you've got a date planned, and you're all set to meet up. You show up ready for romance, but they're nowhere to be found. You check your phone and realize that not only have they stood you up, but they've also vanished from all your social media and blocked your number. Basically, cloaking is like ghosting, but with extra stealth. Instead of just ignoring your messages, they go full ninja and wipe themselves off your radar entirely. It's as if they're trying to erase all evidence they ever existed, leaving you wondering if they were a figment of your imagination. One moment you're planning where to meet, and the next they've cloaked themselves so thoroughly you'll need a detective to track them down. The worst part is that cloaking leaves zero chance for closure. It's the dating equivalent of walking into a room and finding that all the furniture is gone, including the floor. One second they're there, the next they've pulled a total vanishing act. Situationships. One moment you're hitting it off with someone at an art exhibition, and now you're spending every weekend together, sharing meals and binge-watching the latest Netflix series before it gets canceled. But here's the twist. He hasn't exactly asked you out yet. The last time you asked him about your relationship, all he said was, "We don't have to give it a name, let's just see how it goes." Your kind of boyfriend is great, but just like every other guy on this table, he wants to go with the flow. That's just a fancy way of saying, "I don't want a girlfriend, but I'm here to waste 6 months of your life." That's a little snippet of today's dating trend called the situationship, where friendship and romance blur like a bad haircut that you keep trying to save. It's a scenario that's become all too familiar in the dating world, especially among millennials and Gen Zs. It's like a part-time job that doesn't pay, but somehow you still show up every weekend. It's basically the relationship status of "it's not that complicated," except that it is. Let's not forget about the unspoken rule: never ever ask about the relationship status. If you break it, you're setting off a cringe bomb that turns your dinner date into an awkward silence marathon. All this confusion can raise your blood pressure like inflation. One moment you're planning a cute weekend getaway with him, and the next day you're freaking out because he didn't text you for 2 days. The lack of labels may create a sense of freedom, but it can also be frustrating. You start questioning your worth and his unclear intentions. If you love the Evaluator and everything we do, then get ready because we have very exciting news. You can now shop merch from our shop and show your support. Plus, on top of everything, it actually looks very cool. Links in the description. Breadcrumbing. As if situationships aren't brain-draining enough, let's talk about breadcrumbing, another term you might have stumbled upon in the modern dating dictionary. Breadcrumbing is basically dropping crumbs of attention to keep someone invested without offering anything real. Instead, you send tons of compliments, a heart emoji here, a relatable meme there, with a sprinkle of "I miss you" texts everywhere. It's like someone holding a piece of chocolate cake away from you. It's visually delicious enough to make you want to grab it, but never close enough for you to reach. You're basically living in a rom-com, except you're stuck on "to be continued" because there are no promises of anything serious. While it might seem like it's nothing, breadcrumbing can slowly damage your self-esteem. You're left wondering if they actually like you, or if they're just keeping you at the side in case they're bored or lonely.